I've stated a few times on this channel that I'm not much of a gamer. I've played my fair share of games, especially between the ages of like 9 to 15, and it kind of has just trailed off from then. I'll still maybe game for like an hour or two a week to blow off steam, but it's never a habitual habit or something I crave doing unless I'm really stressed and I need to shoot some people. Unfortunately, my gaming has just kind of devolved into PUBG and replaying the same kind of classics again and again that I really enjoy, just kind of bring back the nostalgia trip that so many of us thoroughly crave throughout our life. So this will be my list of the top 10 fantasy games of all time, because those were the games that really captured my heart. I loved fantastical elements in my games. Now, this is a personal list. It's my choice, just as every list on YouTube is. There is no definitive best. There are certainly games I have not played, like I've never played the God of War series, ever, which it's not my taste really from what I've seen. It's way too much just in-your-face, crazy action. I like a more laid-back, kind of set-back, chill vibe. So you're going to see a lot of that. The kind of maybe 5 to 10-year-old games that had the more, laid-back attitude that games in that time period had, as opposed to now, which is a lot more murder deathy. Kicking off with number 10, you're also going to see I love strategy games, and that's Battle for Middle-earth. This game was so much fun for me when it first came out. It actually ran on my PC I had at the time, which was a miracle because that thing was a pile of junk. I got to play this game when I was at my peak Lord of the Rings fandom. The excitement I felt playing Helm's Deep or Minas Tirith actually gave me a little bit of adrenaline. It was just amazing to see the orc armies come and crash at the wall, and replaying the levels again and again until I could do it on the hardest difficulty and have a better outcome than they actually had in the movies, which was possible in this game, and I thought was really fun. I kept Boromir alive all the way to the very end, which made me feel like, I'm better than you, Aragorn, because I can play this game better. Anyway, it's just a great game, and it's actually really cheap right now, I believe, on Steam, and totally worth checking out if you've not already played it. A cool little trip into the Lord of the Rings world that completely holds up over time. Slower paced, but that doesn't mean it's not a lot of fun. Next up, we have the Dragon Age series. I was a big fan of this series, except for that one entry that totally sucked, where they just reused rooms all the time. But aside from that one, Dragon Age really were some of the best kind of just original, fully conceptualized by the developer fantasy worlds that I really enjoyed. The magic system and leveling up here. The turn-based stuff wasn't great when it first came out, but I like that they turned it into a more fluid combat system later on. Next up, we have Knights of the Old Republic. Not the MMO. I actually hate MMOs. I'll almost never play them. So this one was the single-player version of the popular, still to this day, massive multiplayer online Star Wars game. And yes, Star Wars is fantasy. It's not science fiction. There's no sci-fi elements in Star Wars. But getting into this game, this was the game that first really let your decisions influence the outcome of the game that I ever played, and it set me up for my love of Mass Effect down the road substantially. You could choose to be a Jedi or Sith, walk a good or bad path, and actually your companions would die or not die, depending on who or what you chose to side with. I almost always went evil. I'd start out I'm gonna be a good guy this time, and then someone would piss me off and I'd be like, murder him. I'm really bad at being the good guy in games. I kill frequently. But every time that you can explore the Old Republic in Star Wars, I'm there. I'm a big expanded universe guy. Some of the EU was trash, so I do agree with it being scrapped as canon as a whole, but we as the fans can still enjoy it. Next up, we have one I bet no one was calling, and that's Pokemon Blue. Yes, Pokemon is a fantasy game. There is no denying that. And this first-gen game, I spent way too long playing. Squirtle for life. Charmander is garbage. I love my little turtle boy all the way to Blastoise every time. I'd get him at the beginning and he would be with me at the very end when I went after the final 4 and eventually went after Mewtwo all the way. Squirtle, Blastoise, Wartortle. I'd sometimes have all 3 in my lineup just because why not? And this is a franchise that I've certainly lost interest in a lot of what they've done recently. I played Pokemon Go for a bit and it was a cute thing, but I've never felt driven to keep it going with it. But this world is fantastic, and it's set in ours in a way. So seeing this kind of reflection back and forth is great. I was completely thrilled as a child every time I found a new Pokemon. No matter what it was, I just loved encountering something new. The first time I saw a Machop, I had no idea what it was, and I got it, and I still remember the feeling of success that I got this little fighter dude, and Machop, because of that, is still one of my favorite Pokemon to this day. I think everyone who was born in the early to mid 90s has this serious nostalgia for these games. It was ingrained in our childhood. I still have Pokemon cards from when I was a kid somewhere in some attic that if I ever find will be the biggest nostalgia trip of my life, and this game was my introduction to that. And next up we have a total shift back to the straight up fantasy genre, and that is Fable II. I liked the Fable franchise, but specifically Fable II. Fable II was the first video game that proved to me that this medium was a valid way to enjoy fantasy. I loved going through this world, exploring it, and this badass magic system that helped build an incredibly vibrant world was so enjoyable. And the inclusion of guns was a great choice by them. I love shooting, hacking, slashing, and then occasionally using a bow, because I love bows as well. A friend of mine played a mean trick on me where he was like, that potion that says it'll change your gender, it's not actually going to change your gender. It gives you like a whole new set of abilities. And I was young and dumb enough at the time. I was like, all right, Cameron, I believe you. And I drank it, and then I just had a female character, which when you're a kid is like, no, but of course now I don't care. Fable 2 is a special game that I will say still holds up to this day and is worth going back to. Next up we have Warcraft 3. Again, I've never played World of Warcraft, not my thing. I wish I could, because I'd love to know where the story goes after Reign of Chaos and Frozen Throne end, but I can't play MMOs. They drive me nuts, especially those kind, so where there's like has to be teamwork. So for that reason, I've kind of just made my peace with the World of Warcraft world. But I do really enjoy Reign of Chaos and Frozen Throne. They have amazing stories, probably some of the best storytelling of any game on this list. The most vividly built world the video game industry had seen up until that time. I mean, it inspired and kicked off World of Warcraft, so that should tell you everything you need to know. This is the first game on this list I would give a solid 10 out of 10 and say is basically perfect. I still go back and play Warcraft 3 every now and then. There's these custom fan-made maps you can find online like Helm's Deep and Minas Tirith that are just as good, if not better, than the ones that are prevalent in Battle for Middle-earth, and that tells you a lot. This game is a blast, and the mods and things you can do to it now are just crazy, because of course there's a fan community around it that's so strong and makes it so enjoyable to go back to. And now we have the pick at number 4 that's on every fantasy list ever, Skyrim, and this one gets a bonus award from me for most time invested. I have a love-hate relationship with Skyrim a little bit because it's an incredible game. I love it to death. There's no denying that. But I don't enjoy playing it that much. I just simmer at a 7 the entire time I play it. It'll never hit a 10. It never goes below a 7. I just sit at this, yeah, I'm having fun, but it's just addictive enough and deep enough a world that that's all you need. You just need to be engaged so that every new quest and mission and side thing pulls you in deeper. No matter what, I will end up being a stealth character. I don't know why. I've tried so many times not to, but eventually it's like, nope, I'm gonna steal stuff and kill people with a knife, and that's who I'm gonna be. Occasionally I'll use a bow, but I like being the knife guy. I don't really need to talk more about this game because I'm sure everyone here has played it for hundreds of hours. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's been ported to the most systems of any major AAA modern title, I'm sure. I even got it for the Switch before I got rid of my Switch for a little bit, just to like see how well they ported it, and they ported it amazingly well. And I actually got to try it recently in VR, which was just a mind-blowing experience on its own. It made it like a whole new game, and I invested many more hours into that as well. Next up at number 3, we have a game I have yet to beat because I want to get it to 100%. But there's just no way I can, and that is Witcher 3. This is probably the best representation of a book in video game format, full stop. I can't think of a better example. A bunch of you guys have told me in the comments down below, play Witcher 3, it's incredible, you'll love it, and I kind of was hesitant to get in it because I didn't want to dive a ton of time into it, but I've probably put 8 to 10 hours in it at this point, because that's about all I can afford in the month that I've had it. But it's been stupendous. That's a word that came out of my mouth. They made Geralt feel so much like he does in the books. I enjoyed the world. They've captured it while making it still surprising and new for the readers. Apparently the author doesn't like it, but screw him, it's wonderful. At number 2, we have Ocarina of Time. I know you Gen Zers, or whatever you're called, love Breath of the Wild, and I played it and I couldn't really get that into it. It was somehow too much with so many things to do, yet too repetitive for me. So I kind of just couldn't get into Breath of the Wild. So I flipped around, and I actually even recently replayed Ocarina of Time through an emulator, and that held up completely. I love Ocarina of Time. It has one of the best stories ever told in a video game, one of the best villains, one of the best heroes, the first open world I'm aware of there ever being in a major AAA title for a video game. This was the game that made the N64, to me, worth it. I love the N64. Upgrading the GameCube took serious motivation, but it was great, and I love the GameCube too. Ocarina of Time is the reason that I still am willing to try video games. I'm hoping one day I can feel the level of just wonder and splendor at a game that Ocarina of Time made me feel when I was 4, 5, or 6. I don't know when I first picked it up. It was amazing. So what could possibly beat all of these? What fantasy game is better than this entire list? Well, if you notice, I like strategy. I like kind of build your own character, slower paced games, and I actually more like a grimdark kind of game, something that's kind of evil, something that has a real dark edge to it, which is very different than I like to read, but that's just a different thing special for me. And that is, for me, Diablo II. I've come back to this game probably more than any game in my entire life. I will still just occasionally throw it on whatever PC I have and just get a paladin or a necromancer or a barbarian up to about level 20 before I drop it. But it's so much fun, an incredible world, an engaging story, but just so free. There's something about this game that, yes, you're walking this set story path and there's no real choices for you to make, but it's this sprawling world where you can just make your character fit exactly how you want it to be. I like making a necromancer who actually gets up close and personal, or a paladin who every time you hit him you take 50 times your own damage back. I managed to kill Diablo in the game by just having that spell on me and letting him hit me while just downing potions super fast, and Diablo killed himself by hitting me. I felt really accomplished. If you've never played Diablo 2, I guarantee you will love it if you give it a try, because I'll make a bold claim right now. This is the game in all of gaming that holds up best for its contemporary time to now. I still think there is no game that tried to capture the style or dungeon crawler aspect that Diablo 2 enhanced and made better than any game at the time had done. No game has topped what they set, in my opinion. Diablo 3, even for me, I was very mellow on. I'd give it a 6. Just, there was something perfect about every twist, turn, and nuanced decision they made in Diablo 2 that made it just echo with you while you played it. I will stake my reputation as a YouTuber that if you have not played Diablo 2 and you go pick it up right now for $5-10, whatever it is, and dive into it, you'll love it. Get through Act 1 and let me know what you think if you want to accept that little challenge. I hope you guys like this video. It's still fantasy related, not book related. I'll get back to the book videos tomorrow. Like and subscribe if you've not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. News for the Patreons: if you enjoy WoT Talk, or the Wheel of Time talk show that we do, that always starts with a spoiler-free section to remind some people of that. I will be doing an audio version only of every episode and putting it up on Patreon probably this weekend, and everyone who just throws in $1 will have the audio only option available to them. So if you're going to work or whatever, that's 3 hours of content, so a good portion of your commute throughout the month just to go ahead and enjoy. So that way I can, you don't have to sit through ads, but I still make, something back for the effort I put in for my content. Have a good one, y'all. Love ya. Peace.